Do you remember the last time you saw or rode an electric interurban car? Well, the chances are you never have. That form of transportation is now a thing of the past. One true interurban still remains today, the Chicago South Shore and South Bend Railroad, also known as the South Shore Line. It is the sole surviving line of three systems that once ran out of Chicago. But this story is not about the South Shore or the North Shore lines. It's about the Chicago Aurora and Elgin Railroad, also known as the Roarin Elgin. The Roarin Elgin was the one line that ran from downtown Chicago at Weld Street through the western suburbs to Wheaton. It continued on to the Fox River Valley communities of Aurora, Batavia, Geneva, and Elgin. Unlike other electric interurban railways, which operate from an overhead trolley wire, the majority of the Roarin Elgin operated from a third rail for electric power. Born in August of 1902, this little electric railroad was to continue running until July 3, 1957. It got its nickname, the Roarin Elgin, because in its early days of operation, the trains ran as often as every 15 minutes at speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. Today that wouldn't seem exciting, but just think of what that must have been like back in the early teens and the 1920s. Roads in most places were still primitive, no more than a dirt wagon path. Common folk were left to ride in horse-drawn wagons, on horseback, or by steam trains or electric interurban lines. Henry Ford's Model T was still in the future, so economical electric interurban trains were the way to travel. The first trains of the Roarin Elgin were built of wood and had leather or rattan covered seats, ornate wood interior walls, and windows with upper sash stained glass windows. In their day, they were very beautiful cars. The line operated between 52nd Street, later known as Laramie Avenue, and Aurora. By 1903, the line to Elgin was opened and the core main line was completed. This was acceptable, but a direct connection into downtown Chicago was desired. In 1905, a contract was signed with the Metropolitan West Side Elevated, permitting through operation to Weld Street Terminal. This would continue until September 20th, 1953. In exchange, the rapid transit trains were allowed to operate over the Roarin Elgin tracks to Des Plaines Avenue in Forest Park. Two additional branches, one to Batavia, where the powerhouse was located, and one to Geneva, were constructed before 1910. After 1910, traffic grew constantly, and by 1919, the cost of materials and labor grew faster than the income of the railroad, and the line was eventually forced into receivership. Dr. Thomas Conway Jr. purchased the third rail line at foreclosure in 1922. He established a new modernization program. The main line from Forest Park to Wheaton was rebuilt with heavier rail, stone ballast, and new block signals. In 1923, 20 new steel cars were ordered from the Pullman Car Company. Newly designed seats were incorporated. A new easy loading step was utilized along with heavy steel construction. The cars were capable of a free running speed of 72 miles per hour. Samuel Insull, the electric utilities magnate, gained control of the Chicago Aurora and Elgin in 1926. Under his leadership and guidance, the line was assured survival beyond World War II. During 1927, the railway purchased 15 new steel cars from the Cincinnati Car Company. Numbered 420 to 434, the cars weighed over 100,000 pounds and had excellent riding qualities. The effects of the stock market crash on October 29, 1929, sent Insull's empire into total collapse. On June 7, 1932, Insull resigned control of the CA&E. By July of that year, the railroad was again in receivership. A population increase in the suburbs surrounding the CA&E in the 1930s brought increased ridership and revenue. With very prudent spending, the line was assured survival through the remaining Depression years. Between 1935 and 1938, the railroad leased 12 cars from the North Shore Line and purchased 8 cars from the Washington, Baltimore, and Annapolis Railway. The 12 leased cars were eventually purchased in 1946. High operating expenses on the Geneva branch led to substitute bus service in 1937. The company petitioned the Illinois Commerce Commission in 1931 to reroute their tracks off of Broadway Street in Aurora. A new right-of-way along the Fox River was built. The relocation was delayed for some years due to the Depression. A new off-street terminal finally opened on December 31st, 1939. A high-level platform with a canopy was now used by the passengers. This also ended all street running on the entire railroad. By the end of the 1930s, the Roarin Elgin was again in need of more cars. Plans were drawn up for heavyweight cars that could train with the existing steel car fleet. Using aluminum in the construction reduced the weight of the cars considerably. A contract was signed in November 1941 with the St. Louis Car Company for 10 new cars. The events of December 7th delayed the delivery of the cars until 1945. The new cars were numbered 451 to 460. Delivery of those cars began in October and was completed by December. These cars were to become the last order for conventional interurban cars in the United States. The post-war boom brought the company into a profitable situation. The change to a 5-day work week, greater use of the automobile, and the impending construction of the Eisenhower Expressway was to change that. Because of the freeway construction, the Roarin Elgin would lose its downtown terminal. In 1950, management petitioned the Commerce Commission to replace rail cars with buses, but the idea was dropped. A second attempt to substitute buses was tried in 1952. The Commerce Commission denied the suspension, but allowed the CA&E to terminate at Forest Park starting September 20th, 1953. Riders were forced to transfer to rapid transit trains that were often slower and dirty. The 2-seat ride, along with the additional fare, was not welcomed. By late October, more than half the riders abandoned the line for other means of transportation. With no route to downtown Chicago and a major loss of passengers, the line now faced financial losses of $1 million a year. For the next 3 years, the problem of how to get the Roarin Elgin back into downtown Chicago was discussed. While this was going on, the railroad was losing more patrons and revenue was declining. To keep the service to the western suburbs going, the state offered to buy the line, but that did not happen. The Chicago Transit Authority offered several plans, but none were adopted. By January 1957, the railway was losing $60,000 a month. Drastic service reductions were proposed in February, but pressure from online communities defeated the plan. A service suspension was finally granted for June 30th. An extension to July 3rd was granted as a commuter group tried to post a $10,000 bond to keep the line going. They did not raise the money, and at 12 noon, the Roarin Elgin was allowed to cease all operations. Trains already on the line were ordered into the Wheaton storage yard. The evening rush hour at Forest Park was the scene of confusion. Passengers who rode the Roarin Elgin into Chicago in the morning did not have a ride home in the evening. Leiden Motor Coach Company and the Chicago and West Towns Bus Company provided additional service on their parallel bus routes. Everyone else was left to fend for themselves. many people waited while friends and relatives came to pick them up and take them home. The afternoon newspapers had banner headlines about the shutdown so people could find an alternate way home, but many did not find out in time. In October of 1955, the Illini Railroad Club operated an excursion using wood coaches number 316 and 317 over the entire railroad. This portion of the film shows this excursion. Photo stops were made at various towns leading to Wheaton, and an inspection of the equipment was made at Wheaton itself before continuing out to the Batavia branch. After a lunch stop at Aurora, the train proceeded back to Wheaton and out the Elgin branch to Clintonville, where a model railroad is located in the old substation building. St. Louis number 459 is seen traversing the Cook County branch in May of 1957 on a railfan excursion. No one knew at the time that only a little more than a month remained for the railroad to operate as a passenger carrier. This was the closest track to Chicago with overhead wire, and it was fascinating to photograph special excursion trains on this branch with their poles up. The Cook County branch was built in 1906 to accommodate funeral trains operated by the Metropolitan West Side Elevated and the Roarin Elgin. The branch was approximately 2¼ miles long. It extended south from the main line near Bellwood Station. Paralleling Manheim Road south, the line curved west along the north side of Roosevelt Road. A stop was located here for people going to the Oak Ridge Cemetery, located on the south side of Roosevelt. The line continued west, crossing Wolf Road, and entered Mount Carmel Cemetery. A high-level platform was built there to accommodate both the CA&E and the Metropolitan West Side funeral trains. This service lasted until 1934. After that, the branch was used for freight service only. The track was cut back to just east of Oak Ridge Stop. A monument company was located here. Several small industries and a cement plant were located along the branch. The Indiana Harbor Belt Railway serviced this line after abandonment of the Roarin Elgin. In 1986, this last remnant of the CA&E was finally removed. Mini skirts hadn't been developed yet when this film was shot. Due to the inability to find a route back into Chicago, a permanent suspension of service was requested in early 1958. A special train was operated on March 6th to promote resumption of service through the use of a half-cent gasoline tax. A vote of the people in April defeated the plan by a narrow margin. On October 26, 1958, the Central Electric Rail Fans Association sponsored the last all-steel fan trip over the line. The train was made up of 3 cars: Cincinnati 430, Pullman 403, and St. Louis 453. A 4th car was added at Wheaton to accommodate an overflow crowd. It was fitting that car 460 was the add-on car, the last interurban built in the United States. Here the train is seen racing along the Aurora branch through Warrenville. Proceeding west through Batavia Junction, the train reaches Aurora along the side of the Fox River. After a lunch stop in Aurora, the train returned east to Wheaton. After a brief stop at Wheaton, the special pulled out onto the main line, changed direction, and headed out to Elgin. On December 7th, 1958, the Illini Railroad Club operated the last passenger train. Foul weather produced a lower than expected turnout. Dark skies and snow flurries seemed to be very appropriate. Two wood coaches, number 310 and 319, were used on this train to close out 55 years of passenger service. Similar cars were used when the Roarin Elgin opened for business in 1902. Seen here are scenes of Chicago Aurora and Elgin freight locomotives 3003 and 3004 switching the Indiana Harbor Belt interchange at Bellwood and the Cook County branch in April 1957. Freight operation on the Roarin Elgin was the last glimmer of hope for the railway. Online industries were scarce, so the emphasis was placed on bridge traffic. By providing switching with connecting rail lines, the CA&E could route freight cars around Chicago in less time than normally required. The result found the Roarin Elgin overwhelmed with freight business. Operating with only 4 locomotives, it was decided to purchase 2 used locomotives from the Cedar Rapids and Iowa City Railway. They arrived on the property in 1954 and were immediately put to work as a tandem pair. Even with the increased freight business, the railway was not able to offset the operating losses. By 1959, even this operation would shut down. Online industries were advised that after April 1st, the railway would shut down at any time. On June 17th, locomotives 2001 and 2002 tied up at Wheaton for the last time. There were 6 locomotives on the roster, and all were scrapped at Wheaton in 1963. On July 6, 1961, approval was finally given to abandon the entire railway. A contract was signed with Commercial Metals Company of Dallas, Texas, to rip up the rails and scrap the rolling stock at Wheaton. The Milwaukee Road, Indiana Harbor Belt, Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, and Illinois Central railroads were authorized to service various CA&E industries left after the abandonment. The railway deteriorated rapidly after service was suspended. Several stations were sold and converted to commercial businesses. After demolition of the shop buildings and yard at Wheaton, a high-rise apartment complex was constructed on the site, and no evidence remains of the line there today. These scenes, taken in December 1961, show the derelict condition of the property at Wheaton. Commercial Metals Company leased an old Alco diesel switcher number 212 from the Elgin, Joliet, and Eastern Railway. The diesel was used to move the cars to the west side of the Wheaton yard, where they were burned and all usable metal was cut up and shipped off to local steel mills. By March of 1962, various museum-purchased cars were being readied for shipment from Wheaton. The Chicago and Northwestern conducted a team track to the Roarin Elgin for purposes of shipping the scrap metal loads. Over that connecting line, all the museum cars except for one left Wheaton for their new homes. Is line car number 11 and coaches 20, 316, and 317 being shipped to Relic at South Elgin, Illinois. These cars were stored on the Illinois Central before being delivered to Coleman Junction near Elgin. Other cars were shipped off to museums in Indiana, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Maine. Once most of the museum cars were staged for shipping, the scrapping operation began in earnest. Here we see number 212 delivering 2 wood cars to the rear of the yard, where the cars would be tipped over off their trucks and burned, and all usable metal cut up with acetylene torches. Off to the left and out of the view of the camera is a bulldozer with a cable winch used to pull the cars off their trucks and rolled onto the ground so that they could be burned. This is all that remained of the electric freight locomotives. All of them were scrapped. General scenes of the car bodies as they were burned and cut up. Trolley Park, USA, located at North Olmsted, Ohio, purchased 8 CA&E cars for their operation. Wood cars 36, 303, 319, Pullman 409, and 4 St. Louis cars 451, 453, 458, and 460 were purchased. The St. Louis cars were the last to leave the property, as Commercial Metals and the CA&E management were trying to sell them to other electric lines. By the spring of 1963, most of the equipment except the St. Louis cars were gone. The 4 Ohio-bound cars are shown leaving Wheaton and arriving at the 40th Street Yard on the Chicago and Northwestern. Today, on sunny summer afternoons, the Fox River Trolley Museum, formerly known as Relic, operates their small fleet of former CA&E cars, including the 316, to the delight of younger passengers who never experienced an electric interurban car. This short 1.5-mile line is all that remains of a system that stretched from Carpentersville to Yorkville, Illinois, a distance of 47 miles. The museum bought the portion from Castlemuir to Coleman. Seen here is Cincinnati car number 434, operating at the Seashore Trolley Museum at Kennebunkport, Maine in the summer of 1964. It is now 38 years since the Roarin Elgin closed operation. Many miles of right-of-way have been converted to biking and hiking trails called the Illinois Prairie Path. Several books have been written. Many scale models of the line's equipment have been made over the years. But the most enduring tribute to the rail system are the distinctive electric interurban cars that operated over the line that was known as the Roarin Elgin.